May God's peace, mercy, and blessings be upon you. New video and a new story. But before starting, don't forget to pray for the Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. Let's begin. Haunted House Story. The events of this story revolve around a young man called Marwan. Marwan is a 21-year-old young man. Marwan has a sister called Maryam, who is older than him. Marwan lives with his sister and his parents. Marwan was always quarreling with his father, and the reason was that he was always late outside the house, as was the custom when Marwan wanted to stay up until dawn with his friends. One day, Marwan came to the house and it was 5 in the morning. When Marwan entered the house, he found his angry father waiting for him. Marwan's father said, "Marwan, what you are doing is wrong and you should not get used to staying up late until late every day. From now, I want you to be home before midnight." Marwan heard these words and promised his father not to repeat his act again. The next day, Marwan actually returned before midnight, as his father had told him. But the next day, Marwan returned to his old habit. Because of that, Marwan's father became very angry and told him not to enter the house and to return from the house as punishment for what he had done. The argument between Marwan and his father intensified, and in the end Marwan left the house angry. Marwan's sister called him and told him to go to the old house where the family lived. Even though Marwan was very angry because his father did not allow him to go to the old house where the family lived, he was allowed to enter, especially since the weather was very cold, but he had no other choice. Marwan went to family's old house, which was completely covered in dirt. When Marwan arrived, he was feeling very tired, so he decided to rest now, and the next day he would clean the house. Marwan enlisted the help of a friend of his who lives near the house, and together they cleaned the house. After that, Marwan decided as usual to stay up late outside the house was with his friends. Marwan then returned home and it was 3 in the morning. In fact, the place was very lonely. Marwan got out of his car and looked up and saw something that froze the blood in his veins. Marwan saw as if there was someone standing behind the glass of his room looking at him from above. Marwan felt afraid, but he had no other choice but to enter the house and explore what he saw. Perhaps it was a thief trying to steal anything from the house. Marwan went up with great caution to the upper floor and slowly opened the door to the room, but he did not find anything. Marwan began searching all parts of the house, searching about that person who saw him but did not find anything. Marwan went to his room to sleep, as he was feeling very sleepy. Before Marwan went to sleep, he heard a very loud sound of music. Marwan thought that the music he was hearing was from the neighbors, and surely they would lower this volume within a few seconds. Indeed, after a minute, the sound disappeared completely, but the surprise was that when Marwan looked out the window to check the source of the sound, he did not see any illuminated house near him, as if that sound was coming from his own house. After this tiring day, Marwan decided to sleep. The next morning, Marwan called his mother and told her that he wanted to return home. Marwan's mother tried to convince his father, but his father was still angry with him because he disobeyed him and returned at a late hour. Marwan had no other choice but to stay In this house, Marwan called a friend of his and told him what happened. Marwan's friend said, "The house is definitely haunted by jinn." These words terrified Marwan, and Marwan was unable to sleep for 2 full days. Some frightening things began to happen to Marwan. Sometimes he heard the sound of a child crying coming from in front of the door of the room, and at other times he heard the child breathing, but he was crying, and at other times this child was running in the room, all around the house. All of this was keeping Marwan locked inside his room. Marwan would only go out in the morning to buy household items and then come back quickly before sunset. It was as if Marwan was living inside a prison from which he could not get out. One day, while Marwan was in the kitchen drinking a little water, a very scary thing happened. Marwan heard the sounds of feet moving in his room. Marwan was very afraid that day and could not climb into the room. Marwan went out and sat inside his car and was freezing from the cold. But for Marwan, the feeling of cold was better than the things that were happening to him. As the sun rose, Marwan decided to go. He went to one of his relatives and took him with him to talk to his father about Marwan's return home. Indeed, after much suffering, Marwan's father agreed to his return home on the condition that he would not be late again. Indeed, Marwan became committed to his father's words and no longer stayed up late like he used to do before. But he decided not to. He told someone what was happening to him in the old house so that those around him would not think he was crazy. Don't forget to pray for the Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. Subscribe to the channel, like the video and share your opinions in the comments. The second story is titled The Slaughtered Girl in the Dark. The events of this story revolve around 2 girls, Julie and Maggie. Julie was used to going out and staying up late every night with her friends and would not return to her dorm room until near dawn. As for Maggie, she was a girl who was very diligent in her studies and did not like to go out with Julie. The mid-year exams were approaching as usual. Maggie is studying hard in order to get a high grade while Julie is ready to go out and attend parties and evenings out. The night there were only 2 days left until the test date. Julie asked her friend Maggie to come with her to spend the night in order to entertain herself and in order to try to get out of the state of tension and anxiety that Maggie always feels due to the approaching date of the exams. Despite Julie's insistence on bringing Maggie with her, Maggie refused to leave the room and decided to stay in order to study and prepare well for the upcoming test. In the end, Julie went to hang out with her friends while Maggie stayed in the room studying. Julie returned by 2 in the morning. The room was very dark, so Julie decided not to turn on the lights so as not to disturb Maggie, and she decided to go directly to sleep. In the morning, it was still dark inside the room because the curtains were preventing sunlight from entering the room. Julie decided to go and wake Maggie in order to help her study, as the test is tomorrow and Julie had not studied anything yet. The surprise was when Julie turned on the lights. Julie saw a lot of blood on Maggie's desk, and when she looked at Maggie's bed she found her slaughtered and with the words written on the wall, "Wasn't it nice if you didn't turn on the lights when I returned?" Today's stories are over. I hope they terrified you. Don't forget to pray for the Prophet Muhammad. May God bless him and grant him peace. Subscribe to the channel, like the video and share your opinions in the comments. Peace, mercy and blessings of God.